It's another Friday here on Outpost No. Jesus Christ. It's Friday on Outpost Unknown. We're back with another Full Moon Friday episode. My name is Matthew, joined once again by Steve.
Yes. Second in command of Outpost No.
Outpost Known. And over there in Sweden is Borp.
Hello. I don't think we even did introductions for the last episode. We did.
We didn't.
It's fine.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
matter. Our names will be listed on the video. People will know.
Yeah.
So last week we talked about coming seed people, and this week we're going to be talking about coming women, because we are talking about Head of the Family, which Charles Band claims is his best movie that Full Moon has ever done. He loves this film. He's tried for 2 decades now to get a sequel to this movie. There's actually they went into production on Bride of the Head of the Family. It never came out. It's one of his big missed opportunities for him. And we are going to make the determination. We know Charlie watches this show. Charlie, we know that you're on pins and needles waiting for us to give our thoughts on Head of the Family.
Further talk shit about you.
Yes. And so we are going to let you know if this film deserves a sequel and that you should invest the money and put it into production, or if you should just say, no, let it be. It's terrible. So, Borp, I'll start with you again. Head of the Family, had you ever heard of this movie, and what were your thoughts going into it?
I had not heard of this movie at all. Hearing that Charlie thinks this is his best movie is kind of wild to me. I just saw the poster and I said, "Oh boy, I'm in for something here."
Describe the poster for people. What is the poster?
Well, how would you describe this guy? It's a little guy with a big head.
It's MODOK.
It's MODOK.
Yeah.
You nailed it. In a wheelchair-bound MODOK. And yeah.
And that's it. I don't think there's really anything else on the cover.
What's the tagline? It's like, mess with the head and you're dead.
Oh, the tagline on Letterboxd here says "Mastermind of Death."
No, I don't know what movie Steve was watching. Mess with the head and you're dead. Okay.
That's a thing. I did not make that up.
I believe you.
Oh,
I mean, that brain does not lie.
Okay. I see a poster for the remastered edition of Head of the Family. It said "Upset the head and you're dead."
Okay, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will accept your apology now, Matt.
I apologize. Okay, Steve, what were your thoughts? Had you ever heard of this, and what were your thoughts going in?
Never heard of it. Had no thoughts other than MODOK when I saw like the box art for it. I was only curious about it because Charles Band, as you told us, claims this is his best movie. So it's like, okay, well, let me see what this guy props up as the best. I think I watched Seed People first, and so I did not think that was the worst thing he's ever done. So I didn't feel like I trusted his opinions on his own movies going into this.
Okay. Now, to be fair to Charles Band, he did not direct Seed People. This is credited as Richard Talbot, I think, probably his classic Universal Wolfman homage or whatever. That's the pseudonym he went by. But he actually directed this movie. And correct me if I'm wrong, he directed the first Trancers, didn't he? So he has a track record of decent stuff, like when he's actually directing. And now he doesn't hit all the time, but he at least has a track record of quality in the past. Broken Clock is right twice a day. Perhaps Head of the Family is his magnum opus. And so, yeah, Steve, let's get into it. Walk us through, as Borp described, this very horny movie.
It is a very horny movie. So again, I haven't watched this in like 2 months, so I'm trusting you guys to fill in any gaps in my storytelling. The main characters are a guy named Lance and Loretta, I think, and Lance runs a diner, and a guy named Howard is just this just small town like thug guy that's trying to extort people for as much money as possible. He is married to Loretta. He is unaware of the fact that Lance and Loretta are having a constant affair, and they are looking for a way to get rid of Howard because they're tired of his shit. So one night, Lance and Loretta are out driving, and they happen to notice basically a person being kidnapped, and I don't remember if the guy gets killed or dragged into the house, but they recognize that bad shit is going on here, and so there's a family in town called the Stackpools, and it's three siblings. There is Otis, who's just a super big tough guy. Uh, what's the other guy's name with the eyes?
Wheeler.
Wheeler. All right,
Mhm.
so Wheeler is just this kind of like tall, lanky dude. He's wearing sunglasses. We'll find out later that he's got these big, bulging eyes under those sunglasses. And then there is the sister, who is just there to be attractive and does nothing at any point, really.
Ernestina or something, right? Is her name?
Ernestina, yeah, that sounds right. But so Otis, Wheeler, and Ernestina are just like the town weirdos. They come into town every so often to get supplies, and they take it back to I don't know, the Stake Pool Manor or whatever. They own a big mansion like out in the forest somewhere. And so Lance is like he decides to go to the mansion, and he tries to blackmail the Stackpool family. He's like, hey, the other day I saw you all like kidnapping and or killing someone, so let's make a deal. You kill Howard for me, and in exchange, this whole thing just goes away. I don't tell anyone about it. And then well, he's trying to deal with the triplets, uh, but then he finds out there is a fourth sibling in this group, and it is Myron. And Myron is the MODOK guy. Myron is just a giant head with a tiny little body with tiny little arms and legs, and he's the literal brains of the operation. Myron explains that they're actually quadruplets, and they all got a superpower. Otis is super big and strong. Wheeler has maybe super senses, but at least super sight because he pulls off his
Yeah.
sunglasses and he's
He
got
mentions he can
giant eyeballs.
smell and hear as well.
Okay, and then Ernestina has the power of having big tits, and then Myron.
I believe he says just look at her. You can tell what power she has, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
her power is
Right.
being an attractive female in a Charles Band
Sexuality.
movie.
Yep.
And then Myron's like, well, I got all of the brains of the operation. I can actually like completely like mentally dominate the three of them. They act as my eyes and ears out in the world because clearly I can't go out like this. They are basically my mental slaves. And so Myron's like, okay, so why shouldn't I just kill you now, Lance? Like, you know about my operation. I should just execute you. And then the problem goes away. And Lance says, well, I sent a letter to an attorney, and basically told the I have to check in with the attorney every day, and if I ever don't check in with them, he will send a letter to the police telling them what I saw and implicate your family in these murders. Basically, it's just a pissing match. Like Myron is a giant brain and thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and Lance is constantly trying to outsmart him. That's their dynamic. But Myron realizes, okay, at the moment, Lance has got the better of me, so we've got to actually we've got to carry out his bidding. So he sends the siblings out to grab Howard. Howard doesn't die. You find out that Myron is trying to find a way to like implant his mind into a normal human so that he can have his super intellect as well as a normal functioning human body. And so these people that he's capturing, he's not killing them. He's like doing brain experiments on them, which has not worked. It has not worked yet. Clearly, Myron is still in his MODOK body. But it's kind of reminded me of like the people under the stairs, because in the basement of the house, there's just a bunch of like damaged people that have survived Myron's experiments. They can't really do anything with. I guess they could kill them. I honestly don't know why these people just aren't killed after the experiment fails. But in the basement of this house is basically just a bunch of brain damaged people that have survived Myron's experiments. Moving on, Howard is dead.
You're doing great so far, Steve. We haven't missed anything.
Yeah.
Basically, this agreement should be over. Like, Lance upheld his end of the bargain, didn't tell the cops. Myron took care of Howard. but Lance just can't leave well enough alone. So he goes to Myron and is like, okay, well, how about for my continued silence, you give me X amount of money every X amount of days? Because apparently, like, the Myron family is rich. I don't recall why, but they have a shitload of money.
They
And
have oil and they have all kinds of resources like that they own or whatever. So they get tons and tons of money
they got
from
oil
all of
money.
that.
Lance continues to blackmail them, which continues to piss Myron off. Lance continues his relationship with Loretta, and they think they're on easy street now because they're going to have all this money coming in. Eventually, Myron figures out a way out of this by sending Wheeler to just stand outside of Lance's window while Lance calls the attorney. And so through this phone call, through this eavesdropping, they figure out who the attorney is. They go and kill the attorney, and now Lance has no more blackmail material. And so the family kidnaps Loretta and Lance, not before sending Ernestina to bang Lance.
Which is weird because he specifically says, "Hey, Myron, I know this is you," because Myron has already told him that he's basically like in the brain and the minds of all these people. So why Lance decides to bang Myron is weird. Very strange to me.
There's
the only weird thing in this movie, obviously.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to feel icky about here, but
Yeah. So, anyways,
you also glossed over. You've glossed over like 5 sex scenes at this point.
have
Oh,
I?
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
probably
Steve,
have on
Steve,
purpose.
Steve, dive into the sex scenes. Those are very important for the.
The only one I remember is Lance and Loretta like banging in the bathroom while Howard's outside eating a donut. Like very early in the movie. What are the other sex scenes that I missed?
Oh, they're doing it in a car at one point.
Yeah. The sex position, right? This is like Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones because they have these ridiculous sex scenes throughout the course of this, but they're talking about what their plans are while it's happening. Now, I just want to point out for people here, Head of the Family is on YouTube, uncut, on Full Moon's actual YouTube channel. Now, this film is chock full of nudity, full frontal nudity, sex scenes, and everything. I'm just scrolling through, and they're all there on Full Moon's thing. And this video has been up for 2 years, and it has 580,000 views.
And no one's reported it. Matt, are you going to be the one to nuke the Full Moon YouTube channel?
That's a good idea. We'll see how we feel about this movie at the end, and that'll make the determination. But
it looks like it's age gated.
But you can't have sex scenes and boobs on YouTube.
Clearly you can, as long as no one says anything about it.
Okay. I mean, when it says report, I guess I could just report and see what happens. I mean, that doesn't hurt, right?
Anyways,
go ahead.
A lot of sex happens where they explain the plot. Lance banged Ernestina with Myron controlling her body, which is a little strange. But ultimately, Lance and Loretta get kidnapped, and they're brought back there, and Myron is going to conduct his mental experiments on them to try to once again try to find a way to implant his mind into a normal human body. And Lance is like, not so fast, because I actually sent another letter to another attorney, and if I don't make another phone call to him, then you're in trouble. And Myron at this point is like, you know what? Even if I believe you, I don't care. I'm going to torture Loretta, and I'm going to keep torturing her until you tell me the truth, whether you admit that you made all this shit up or whether actually is another attorney. Our previous arrangement where you get to blackmail me is not going to continue. And so Loretta's like, well, what the fuck? Don't let him torture me. And Lance is like, it's just a little torture. You'll be fine. So Loretta turns on Lance at this point, and she starts sucking up to Myron, and she's like, "Oh, I find men like you so sexy," and she pulls her top down, and there's a gross scene where Myron sticks out his gross mutant tongue to lick her nipple, and she has to pretend like she's into this.
It's like an extreme close-up of her boob, too. It's like extreme close-up. Ugh.
With this weird tentacle tongue going. It's bad. But Myron is like, I mean, that was fun. I'm glad I got some titty, but I actually don't care about you at all. Convince the experiments, but it turns out the experiments are he's going to force her to act in. Is it Joan of Arc?
Yep.
He's going to force her to act in a play about Joan of Arc, where all of the brain damaged people that he kept in his basement are going to play all of the other characters. And then at the end of the play, after she has like done her she's Joan of Arc, and so after she has played her part, she's going to get burned at the stake for real, unless Lance tells the truth. Kind of concedes to Myron. Well, Loretta is a terrible actress, and she's wearing like a shock collar or something. Like every time she goes off script, she gets shocked. But she makes it through the play. She's very not happy about it. She's about to be burned, and Lance is like not saying anything. Like I got to keep the upper hand here. I'm sorry, Loretta. I'm sorry that you've got to get burned to death. But that's
$2,000 a week is worth more than Loretta.
In 90s dollars, that might be correct. And so Otis at this point, who has just been the big strong guy, he thinks Loretta is pretty, and that's enough for him to break the control of Myron. So he goes and rescues Loretta, which leads to fires breaking out, which leads to everybody scrambling and fighting. I think Lance ends up dumping Myron down some steps, which I think makes his head like explode or crack or something. Like Myron is not in a good place. Ernestina, I think, tries to lure Lance away, and she's got the titties, and so Lance is all about it. But he ends up fighting someone, I think maybe Wheeler, in the basement, and they both get stabbed. Ultimately, the house burns down. The only survivors are Loretta and Otis. Loretta figures out that Otis is now the heir to whatever money this family had, and Otis can he's so like mentally not there that he can barely form words, and so she's like, I can marry this guy, and then I will have access to all of his money. So she immediately grabs Otis and takes him to the courthouse. They get married, and she's like, oh yes, I've won, I've got all the money. And then Otis starts laughing maniacally at her, and that's the end of the movie. What did I miss?
Nothing. Steel trap.
Apparently, I missed all the sex scenes that you guys remember.
Yeah.
Well, you did get the plot that they talked about in the sex scenes, so that's good.
You just had your eyes closed during the sex scenes.
I was just taking it all in.
Yeah. What do you think, Steve? What were your thoughts? Is this the greatest full moon movie of all time?
I mean, it's certainly it's probably upper tier. Like I like this movie a lot. It's fucking weird, but I was entertained from start to finish. I liked Myron, the character, just being fucking weird and creepy. Like I don't know. I haven't thought to myself what I think the best full moon movie is. I could see this being a high tier or on a high tier in that conversation.
Is this better than anything we've watched so far, in your opinion? Because obviously you would say this is better than Subspecies.
It's better than the most of the things that we've watched in this series. I think I probably like some of my favorite Puppet Master movies. I probably still like better than this. But like the garbage tier Puppet Master movies, all of the Subspecies movies, Seed People, like this is better than all that.
Okay. All right. So you liked the movie quite a bit. All right. Borp, what are your thoughts on Head of the Family?
I didn't like this movie. Too
horny for you?
A little. It like felt kind of icky to me in a lot of ways. Like I don't think this has aged well at all, which is okay.
They dropped the R word quite a few times throughout this.
Right, and there's this whole I feel like this whole style of horror movie has kind of been left in the past. Like I don't know what you would even call it, like freaksploitation. Like look at all these like fucked up people. And I don't know, like this feels like a real movie. I'll give it that. They set up things and things pay off later. Like the fact that that doesn't happen.
What a shitty bar that Charles Band has to clear. Of course, I'll give it credit. It's a real movie. There's setups and payoffs. Well
What
done, Charlie.
actually went somewhere?
Well done,
Right,
Charlie.
but like the character of Otis, like he saves the day because he likes the pretty girl, and they do set that up that he is like that he takes notice of girls who are pretty, and that's like his one character trait that they give him, and that actually pays off. I just thought that would be like a weird quirk of the movie, but I don't know. Like I couldn't jive with this tonally. It felt the comedy in it felt very weird to me, and I think that's kind of been my whole journey with Charles Band as a creator. Like every time he injects his own like weird sense of humor into it, I am just kind of puzzled by it. And humor is always weird. Like that's it's super subjective, right? But it does in terms of like production quality and just in terms of movie making. This is probably a higher tier Full Moon feature, but I just not my thing.
Okay, so Steve really liked it. Borp did not like it.
Steve liked it. Steve liked it more than most of Charles Band's stuff.
So Steve loved it, Borp.
Yeah,
you hated it.
Clearly.
I'm gonna be right in the middle. I think that this movie is like okay, but I agree with a lot of your stuff. What you're saying about it, Borp, in the sense of like this feels like a movie out of time. Like you look back at it and you're like, oh, in 2024, this movie would not be made. Right, or in 2025 when this episode airs. This is not a movie that would be made in the way that it is made right now, with a lot of the language and dialogue that they use to describe people and things of that nature. So, in the 90s, when Steve and I were young men, that was nothing. Like that was just how people spoke, how everybody talked. It wasn't anything that you would look back and be like, oh, that's problematic. 25 years later, society changes and you look at stuff and you're like, okay, yeah, it makes you feel a little icky when you do that. There's a whole thing with, with the consent with Ernestina. She's basically just a sex slave for Myron, and he's the strange sex slave. He's making his sister be his sex slave that he can then enjoy weird sexual experiences through. Very odd, very icky, gross. But then I also agree with Steve on a lot of points where it's like I was entertained through most of this. I did find it kind of humorous in places. I think Jacqueline Lavelle was kind of one of the Full Moon kind of scream queens of the time. She was in Hideous, if you guys have ever seen that. She was in Femalien. I think she was a big softcore actress at the time too, and lots of stuff in the 90s. So, which explains why she's naked through the whole thing, essentially. I did think like the nudity aspect was interesting because we don't generally see tons of nudity in a Full Moon movie. Strangely enough, like you get boobs every once in a while in a Full Moon movie, but this just seemed like a ton. Like she is basically naked through the majority of this movie in some various phase of undress, which I thought was different for a horror. So it felt like a different type of Full Moon movie. It didn't feel like the typical Full Moon movie we have been watching throughout this entire show. So I don't know. There were parts of it I liked and I enjoyed, but there was other parts I was like, "Oh God, I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm sandwiched in between the Borp and Steve Oreo cookies here. So I'm the cream in between your two Oreo cookies, guys. Is what I'm trying to say. So I don't
words
know.
I never needed to hear you say.
So I don't know. Is it the best Full Moon movie ever? I don't think so. Like I feel like Trancers is technically Empire, I guess. If we're talking about Full Moon, there's definitely the first few Puppet Master movies I think is better than this. I definitely personally like some Subspecies movies better than this, especially Part 2. But I don't know. Handing it back over to you guys. Fill in some more stuff. Like, what are your more thoughts on this?
Charles Band is missing the opportunity for Head of the Family versus Seed People, because you have Seed People whose biggest flaw is they can't tell when people are pretending to be Seed People, and then you have Myron who can force people to be emotionless, which can then pass for Seed People. Like, these two things need to come together.
Wow. Head of the Seed People should be like, yes. Okay, let's. I mean, I have Charlie's email. I've sent him an email before. Let me pitch this idea to him, Steve. I'm going to say, look, have you ever thought of Head of the Seed People? Because we just watched these back to back. We'll see what he says. I'll send him an email. I don't care if he doesn't respond. Borp, your thoughts?
So do we know why Bride of the Head of the Family didn't happen?
Yes. Didn't happen. It was first announced, I think, in the 90s, 98, 99, somewhere around there. I think Charles Band had done up a big movie poster for it and everything like that. And then I think it was again announced some point fairly recently, like in the past 10 years, that it was going to be finally made, but it's never gone into production. I assume because he just doesn't have the funds for it. I'd be curious if he was going to try to bring back all the original actors. Or if he has to recast everybody if he was going to do Bride of the Head of the Family. You would think that Jacqueline Lavelle would have to come back,
right?
But I don't know. I don't even know if she's still working these days. I mean, I have no idea.
According to the Full Moon Wiki, he re-announced that Bride was going to come out, or that Bride was being made back in 2008.
Okay,
so that never happened.
Yeah, so I know it's something that he has said he's always wanted to do, is make a sequel to this movie. And I think there are toys of Myron. I think you can get toys of Myron if I'm not mistaken. So this is a film that he has made toys of. So he likes it. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there should be a sequel to Head of the Family that's not Seed People related, but just a straight up sequel?
No, I want Seed People to fight them, or I don't want it at all.
Okay. Borp, what do you think?
I mean, why not? Why not? They're making sequels out of everything else. They might as well make another 60-minute movie. Sure.
Okay.
They even made a toy from Bride of the Head of the Family. He has a toy of a movie that doesn't exist.
What's the toy of? Is it Myron?
I'll copy this and put it in the Discord chat.
Okay, I'm looking.
It looks like Myron with hair, which I'm assuming is actually like a child.
Oh, I guess one of the things about this movie is when Otis laughs at the very end. Does that mean Myron is still controlling him? Like it's actually Myron, laughing, or is it actually Otis laughing?
Oh, that's
one of the
meant to be implied?
That's one of the ambiguous things, because the last time you actually see Myron, he's not quite dead yet, and Ernestina is like goes into the house and is like sits next to him, and Myron is still kind of like moving around, but we never actually see him die for sure.
I interpreted that as Otis is mentally damaged and doesn't understand social cues that he should have stopped laughing. Like I did not link whatsoever the idea that Myron was making him laugh, because Myron doesn't laugh, nor does he make anyone else laugh.
I think it's got to be Myron controlling him, because why would
it feels like if that was a thing, then that needed to be set up earlier, that Myron has an evil laugh that he makes people do.
Well, it should have been, but poor filmmaking.
So, Borp, your ideas were wrong. They didn't set things up properly.
That's okay.
But yeah, because I can't imagine Charles Band saying, "I'm not going to use the Myron character in the sequel." The Myron character is the only really memorable character in it of the family. I would argue. So yeah, I don't know. Head of the Family, it's on Tubi. I actually do have a Blu-ray of this. I should have probably dug it out and just listened to the audio commentary track and watched on that, but I didn't. I was too lazy to actually do that. So yeah, Head of the Family.
Buying the Blu-ray of a Full Moon movie.
Yeah, I mean, I have many of them, so Joke's on me. Charlie just keeps
Yeah.
getting me. God, yeah, that's all. I have
Yep.
nothing. You guys have anything else to say about Head of the Family?
I liked it. We'll probably never watch it again though, until we do Full Moon Fridays 2 20 years from now, where we do like
Right.
the legacy sequel to the thing we're doing now. We'll have to watch it again.
Yeah. Well, you won't have to because you'll still remember everything about it. So,
Here forever.
so what do we got going on next week, guys? I'm putting you on
Man.
the spot.
There are 2 Doll
Okay.
Man movies. We're gonna
Okay.
watch them.
Okay. We're going to watch Doll Man. That's the next franchise we're getting into. Stay tuned next Friday.
The
here on
franchise of
Netflix.
2.
Yep, that's all you
Okay.
need. That's all you need. So, see you next Friday, everybody. Leave a comment. What do you think of Head of the Family? We're all
Don't leave a
Over-
comment. We don't care.
okay.
Engagement.
Yeah, we need that. We need that
Yeah.
engagement so we can
Smash
monetize
that
this.
like.
Yeah. No, you gotta lick that subscribe nipple like Myron licked like Jacqueline Lavelle's boob.
Okay,
Just
I actually
lick
regret
it.
all of this now.
All right.
I'm just gonna hit stop on this.
Bye,
recording.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Stop.